Thank you guys for being both online and in person. Tonight's talk is Secrets to Avoiding Your Doctor. What I'm going to be talking about is the two philosophies of how to take care of your body. And then we're going to get into two persons or two pieces of your body that need to work correctly. That's going to be brain and gut. I'm going to go pretty deep into the gut today, or the digestion. Yeah, that's fine. With that being said, what we're going to look at is the two fields. Now, most people are not aware that there are two philosophies or thought processes behind how do people heal? How do people take care of themselves? How do people actually get better? The one that most people are accustomed to is called allopathic treatment. So what allopathic or allopathy means is, I won't even go into that. I'll give you the other words that go with it. So allopathy is akin or similar to Western medicine, biomedical medicine, mainstream medicine, or orthodox medicine. And they all go into allopathy. So allopathy means diagnosis and treatment of disease with drugs or surgery. So the simple thing to understand about allopathy is it's trying to force the body to do something by either cutting it out or chemically altering the body. That's the goal of allopathy. So that's going to be your Western medical doctor. In contrast to that, chiropractors, naturopaths, homeopaths, we practice a form of medicine called vitalism. And in vitalism, there's a different perspective. So when you look at allopathy, we're saying the body is stupid, we know better, let's do this to fix the body. With vitalism, we say there is a vital force or an innate intelligence which promotes the human being in all its dimensions and expression of symptoms as a means to move the body back into balance so that it can heal. So basically what I'm saying there is, in the chiropractic philosophy, the way that I look at your body is your body is smart. It just needs to be able to have the resources to do what it needs to do. When you go to a medical physician, they're going to say, nope, the body doesn't know what it needs to do, so I'm going to cut it out because you don't need it anymore. Or it's causing a problem or something like that. Or we're going to chemically alter you so that you can't function that way anymore. In vitalism, when we look at this, we look at it through a lens. So I'm going to give you an example of how this works. Let's pretend somebody has a fever. And if that person has a fever, you're going to have two different thought processes of why to do something. So if you have a fever and you go to a Western medical doctor, their first statement is and they'll tell you something like an aspirin or take an Advil or take something like that, or a flu medication. Because the goal of the allopathic or the medical doctor is to make your symptom go away. That is the goal. It's not to make you healthy, it's to make your symptom go away. I need you to understand that. The goal of your medical doctor is to make the symptom go away. That's the allopathic goal. In a vitalistic sense, we go, well, why did the body have a fever? What does the fever do? Is the fever helping? And most people aren't aware that fever does quite a few things. So the bacteria and viruses and parasites that can live in you can only live in a small temperature range. It's actually very small, 2 or 3 degrees. So when you actually get a fever and raise your temperature of your body up to, say, 103 degrees, you actually start killing the bacteria or the virus, and it actually kills them, as well as it stops the bacteria or viruses from being able to replicate. That means grow more. The other thing that the fever will do, oh, that was the ones. Those are the big ones. So it stops the replication. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to get to. It also speeds up the immune response. So it's a catalyst. So what that means in simple simple statement is it actually makes reactions happen quicker. So that's why when you heat up something, the water molecules bounce into each other. So it's doing things quicker. So when you have the fever, it stops the bacteria from replicating. It kills the bacteria and it makes your immune system work quicker. So is that something you think we would want to inhibit or something we want to help? Well, if you're from a vitalistic perspective, which I'm from, my goal is to make the body do what it needs to do best, so it has that innate or inborn intelligence in it. So I would like that fever to work at a quick rate. If, on the other hand, you come from a allopathic perspective, you say, well, the fever is bad, so let's get rid of it. Now, I need you to understand that if you lower the fever, it allows the bacteria or viruses to grow. So then to fight it, you're going to be given an antibiotic. And most people aren't aware of this, but this is how antibiotics are actually found, is that there's a scientist and he has a petri dish and he's growing bacteria on it. And he was eating bread, and a piece of the bread had mold on it, and it fell in the petri dish. He came back the next day, and everything around the mold had died. And what happens is, in nature, funguses or molds will actually kill bacteria. So antibiotics majority of them are actually molds. And that's what they're used to do. So instead of saying, well, let's let the body take care of itself by heating itself up, we're going to tell you to take, say, an aspirin, and then we're going to give you an antibiotic. So you can see how counterproductive that is. You're slowing down your own body's ability to do it, but then you're trying to use funguses to kill it itself. And that's why people, if they're allergic to things like I am, I'm allergic to penicillin. When I'm exposed to it, I have an allergic reaction because it's a fungus and I'm allergic to that. So these are the things that you have to deal with when you're dealing with certain symptoms is, do you believe your body knows best, or do you believe your body doesn't know? And that's really what it comes down to. If you know it has innate intelligence in it and it knows how to heal itself, you want to help it do its best. You want to give it all the resources. If you think your body doesn't know what it's doing and it's just going to break down and it's programmed to fail, then you're going to want to try to change it a different way. So it really comes down to, where do you believe health comes from? Does it come from within, or does it come from a pill, potion, or lotion? That's really what it comes down to when you're dealing with these two mindsets. Is this making sense? When you look at that, then you want to look at, well, what are the things that I can do to make sure that I stay healthy? There are two major systems that we want to work correctly. If these two systems work correctly, you will heal and you won't get sick. If they don't, you will get sick and you will have problems. What is the one that I talk about all the time? What is the thing that I want you to know controls everything? Any ideas?
Your nervous system.
Your nervous system, so your brain, exactly. So we want that to work perfectly first. And I'm going to show how that relates to the other system and how it controls it. So if you like my beautiful picture, as my daughter was doing some art. So I'm going to go over this, but I'm going to show you what happens when you get sick, what parts of your brain actually fatigue, because I've never actually gone over that. So when we look at the brain, we know the brain grows from the bottom to the top, back to the front, right to left, and inside out like a flower. So again, bottom to top, bottom brainstem, reptilian brain, old brain, monkey brain, whatever you want to call it. Bottom, top, new brain, motor cortex, back, occipital lobe, front, frontal lobe, right in here, right to left, and inside out. So that's how your brain grows. If it grows correctly, your frontal lobe is your executive center, the master control center, it's working really well. If you don't, you have problems. Well, what kind of problems do you mean? So this part of your brain is going to be directly related to things like IQ, emotional stability. If you have anxiety and depression, it also controls your immune system. So your frontal lobe is directly correlated to your immune system. And I'll give you an example of how this works. So we had some years ago a young man who came in, and we're going to call this young man Jim. That's not his real name, but we're going to call him Jim. And Jim came in and he had some developmental issues. And what I mean by that is he had an extra chromosome and his frontal lobe was not working as well. The symptoms that this young man had is that every 3 months since he was 2 years old, he would get pneumonia. And a byproduct of that was the fact that his IQ was really low. He was not cognitively working really well. So what happened with him is when we started taking care of him, the chiropractic adjustment, and we figured this in the last 15, 20 years, it actually stimulates the cerebellum, the motor cortex, and the frontal lobe. So literally that pop, that movement, that clicker will actually stimulate cerebellum, motor cortex, frontal lobe. Why is that important? Well, what does the frontal lobe control again? Immune system, cognitive function, memory, emotional control. So this young man had Down syndrome, and by helping him out through adjustments and neurofeedback, we were actually able to upregulate the frontal lobe function. And within 6 months of care, this young man never got sick again. He didn't have pneumonia ever again. The side effect, though, that his parents were not that happy with was his IQ got better. So he got smarter. You think, oh, that's okay. Well, it's not okay when you have a Down syndrome child now that can get out of every room that you lock him into to stop him from going out and doing something that could be a problem. So he got smarter. His immune system started working better. His body started working better because with the adjustment, we made the cerebellum, the motor cortex, and the frontal lobe work better. So the adjustment itself will actually upregulate frontal lobe function. The one area that the adjustment does not have as much speedy change that I've seen is the occipital lobe. But with the neurofeedback, we can actually train that. Well, 70% of the immune function is controlled by the frontal lobe. The other 30 is the occipital lobe, the back of the brain. And why is the back of the brain important? The back of the brain is the pattern generator. It determines how fast your brain thinks, how quickly it's moving, and all these things. So if it's moving too fast, you'll burn yourself out. If it's moving at a right rate, and this is that theta beta ratio when we talk about with people, this is looking at, is your theta beta ratio normal or not? So the symptoms I usually talk about with this part of the brain is not working correctly in the back is, do you have anxiety, racing thoughts, poor stress tolerance? Do you have self-medicating behavior? That means, are you using either substances or television or any different things to try to calm yourself down? This is the area where you're genetically predisposed to addictions. So if this area isn't right, that's where you're predisposed because you need to be able to calm yourself. So that pattern generator or the rate at which your brain functions can be affected by the back of the brain. So another example, we have another fellow that we've taken care of. And this fellow came in with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I'm like, okay, well, let's run the scan and see what's going on. And when we ran it, this part of the brain, it should have a high-low alpha ratio. You don't need to know that, but it should have a ratio below 1.5. His was at 3. So his immune system was not working correctly. He was literally fatiguing. We drove this down, and then through care here, another care he was receiving, he actually went into remission.
3 was low or high?
High. So the goal in the frontal lobe is to make it work quickly, and the goal in the back of the brain is to make it work slowly. So the frontal lobe needs to work really, really quick to process, and the back of the brain needs to work slow to allow you to filter. Other examples of this, and we see this with every single autoimmune patient, is this frontal lobe is too high. We want the number low. So every single person that I see that has Hashimoto's, arthritis, that has irritable bowel, that has Crohn's, that has psoriasis, you name the different things, the frontal lobe is actually low. If that isn't there, then this is definitely low in the back of the brain. But 9 times out of 10, it's the frontal lobe. So we want to make sure the frontal lobe is working correctly. Now, when your brain is working correctly and you're getting adjusted, that's one way. But doc, on vacation, how do I make sure? Because I'm not going to see you, so how do I make sure? Well, you can see another doc. Well, I don't know about that. Well, what else can you do then? There are other ways to actually stimulate your brain. And the number one thing you can do if you're not getting adjusted is to actually walk. And then if you don't walk and you want to go a little more aggressive, then you jog. And if you want to go a little more aggressive, then you run. But any of them will help you stimulate your brain. Why is this? Because you're actually activating the whole brain when you do this. When you run, you're going to make the motor cortex work correctly. You're going to make the cerebellum control how the muscles contract. You have to literally think about where you're running. And you have to use your eyesight, which is the back of the brain, the side of your brain, your ears, to make sure nothing's running. So you're literally using everything when you're walking or running. If you do this daily, there's scientific research showing that disease will go away. So examples of this: people with heart disease start a low-grade walking regime, and then their heart disease goes away. Well, it can't be the physical activity, because it's not the caloric, decreasing caloric expression, because physically moving will actually cause inflammation in your body. Most people aren't aware of that. That's why if you start exercising and it really starts hurting and feels worse, it means that you're so inflamed that that little bit of movement actually causes more inflammation. So you got to get the inflammatory diet down and so forth, and the stress. But what happens is you actually upregulate the frontal lobe with that walking, which then inhibits the brainstem from overreacting, and then you can literally watch the heart disease go away. You'll watch blood pressure drop. So you hear about studies, and they've shown that moderate exercise, aka walking for 20 minutes a day, can lower your blood pressure by 20 points. Simple things like that, and that's because it's literally making your brain work correctly and lowering the stress response. So the movement is very important if you want to live long. If you want to stay healthy, movement is the key. The next thing, though, that we're going to talk about is what's connected to this. So where do the neurotransmitters come from that allow the brain to actually work correctly? And this is, some people know this, some don't, but the majority of them are actually made in your digestive tract. So the neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, catecholamines, it's adrenaline, noradrenaline, and all that stuff. The majority of them, at least 70% of all of them, are actually made in your digestive tract. That means the happy feeling hormones are made in your gut. That means the ability to deal with dark days when it's overcast and you need serotonin to feel happy is made in your gut. So if we look at this, we have the brain. And then we have stomach, liver, pancreas, small intestine, and your large intestine. So we have all that stuff happening here. And I know what you can't understand what it is. It's stomach, liver, pancreas. I've even dried gallbladder in right there. So this is all this stuff that needs to be controlled to work correctly. I'm going to go over one very important thing. This one, if your brain is working correctly and you do not have dementia, you don't have Parkinson's, you don't have any major neurodegenerative disease, one of the indications that you may have a neurodegenerative disease is if you have an autoimmune problem. So if you have like arthritis, it sets you up for neurodegeneration. That means brain degeneration. So that's one of the things we look for. The easiest way to tell if you have dementia is to do a simple smell test. What's the smell test? Can you smell peppermint? If you can't, that is the first thing that you lose 15 to 20 years before you get dementia and before you get Parkinson's. Isn't that crazy? Literally the loss of smell. It's because neurodegeneration happens in the olfactory or the smell the quickest because of tau protein, blah, blah, all that stuff. So what we need to have happen to make sure this whole track works correctly is one very important and very, 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 very important thing. So, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. It's literally acid. Acid in your stomach determines how healthy your digestive tract is. It's the number one thing that will determine if you have any digestive problems or not. It goes brain first, and then acid in your tummy second, and then everything else down below. But acid in your tummy is the most important thing. The acid in your stomach does multiple things. If we want to look at just digestion, it breaks down protein. If you do not break down protein, then your bowel movements will be very stinky and you will have very bad gas because the bacteria will actually eat the protein in your gut instead of it being broken down and absorbed. So if you have noxious, bad, foul-smelling gas, it tells us you're probably prone to having protein digestive issues, which tells me we have an acid issue in your tummy. For the good bacteria to work, to make all the neurotransmitters for the brain to work correctly, your digestive tract, your small intestine, has to be acidic. If it is not acidic, you are literally setting yourself up to not make the right neurotransmitters, and you're setting yourself up to get immune issues, autoimmune issues, inflammation, anxiety, depression, all these other things that we hear happening, heart disease, kidney disease, infections, all of that can be set up just because your bowel is not acidic. So you're saying, Doc, I can get chronic pain because my tummy isn't acidic? Yes. What else does the acidity do? Well, if we eat a bacteria, your stomach is so acidic, it kills it. If we eat a parasite, your stomach is so acidic, it kills it. If you eat a virus, it kills it. So if your stomach is acidic, it kills all the bad stuff. Your stomach is supposed to be acidic, and then your small intestine is supposed to be acidic, and then your large intestine is supposed to be acidic. If they're all acidic, you're healthy. Then on the other side, your blood is supposed to be alkaline, which means basic. That's a healthy body. So if you're acidic, the right bacteria grow. If you're alkaline in your gut, which means you have less acid, the wrong bacteria grow. What are the things that can literally cause you to get set up to get sick? Taking Tums is really bad because you're going to stop the acidity. Having to have antacids, really bad. Having to take a PPI or a protein pump inhibitor, really bad. Because then you set yourself up to have bacterial issues in the stomach that can cause ulcers and so forth. And then you're told something like, well, the ulcer is caused by too much acid. And the answer is, the ulcer is actually caused by a bacterial infection that stops the mucus production in the lining of the stomach, called H. pylori. And then when you make the acid, it hurts the stomach because you're not making the mucus. That's actually what happens. For your stomach to work correctly, there's a very important system that's supposed to happen. So you got your tummy here. There's supposed to be acid in here. And then it enters into the small intestine. The first bit of the small intestine is called the duodenum. And in the duodenum, there are cells that literally say, oh, it's acidic, good, stop making acid in your tummy. It literally is a feedback loop. If you take antacids, those cells never get triggered, and your tummy is told to keep making acid. But you don't make a lot, so you just keep making a little bit all the time. And that's why you keep repeatedly getting heartburn. You repeatedly keep getting ulcers and problems, is because you're making a small amount for a long period of time instead of a lot and then none. Because that's what's supposed to happen. Yes, sir.
Are there particular foods that kind of cause the same effect as tummies would be?
So the question is, are there particular foods that would help? The answer is, you don't want to.
No, I mean, that would cause the acid to get neutralized, you might say.
To get neutralized, specific foods, it's anything alkaline.
We might be accidentally taking.
So the one thing that you might accidentally be taking that you're not aware of is carbonated water. Carbonated water will actually take the acidity out of your stomach. Soda, well, carbonated water specifically, because soda has sugar in it and other things that can be acidic, but carbonated water, like the bubblies or the Perrier's and different things like that, if you drink a lot of that, you can actually deacidify your stomach. The other thing that people will take that can actually decrease it, and how that works is, in carbonated water, you have CO2 plus H2O equals bicarbonate, and bicarbonate is an alkaline molecule. So when you add them together, you get bicarbonate and a hydrogen ion. So you get CO2 H plus, minus, and an H plus. So this ion, this bicarbonate ion, will actually suck hydrogen out of your body and make it less acidic. So that's the number one. The other one that people drink that they think they're helping themselves is actually alkaline water. So like, oh, that alkaline water is really good for me. No, it's actually destroying your stomach acid. So what is an easy way to help yourself keep your stomach acidic? Apple cider vinegar. So apple cider vinegar helps your stomach stay acidic, but it also has probiotics for the right bacteria. It also has fiber for the right bacteria. So you can actually grow the right bacteria in your stomach. So that crazy aunt or friend or whatever who said apple cider vinegar cures everything, kinda, not everything, but it will make your stomach acidic. And if that's what's causing your pain because your bowel is now alkaline, and then you make it acidic from that, yeah, your pain will go away. Or if that's what's causing your lung issue, they can make that go away. Because the bacteria in your gut actually feed every other organ in your body. So it's been shown, this is really cool, I'm gonna go off topic and come back, is that for you to get atherosclerosis, you actually have to have the wrong bacteria in your gut. And you have to actually eat L-carnitine, which is meat proteins. Those two things have to bind together for you to get atherosclerosis. If you have a proper gut, you can't get atherosclerosis because the protein will not interact with the bacteria because the bacteria isn't there. Isn't that cool? That's crazy cool. So that means you want to keep yourself healthy and not get atherosclerosis. Make sure you have a healthy tummy. So make sure it's acidic and you eat a lot of veggies and fruits, and then you'll have the right tummy. If you don't, then that can drive a bunch of issues. So if your digestive tract is working correctly, a plethora of diseases that everybody suffers with, anxiety, depression, pain, heart disease, all these other things, they will literally start going away. And there's lots of research on it. This is literally, most people aren't aware of this, this is the new field of medicine, is actually gut bacteria and organ health and disease prevention. And they're doing this at Harvard and Yale in high amounts. They're investing billions of dollars because they literally are watching how if you change the gut bacteria, you can literally change people's BMI, so being fat or skinny, and you can make diseases go away just because of how healthy their digestive tract is. So if you make sure it's healthy, you can take care of it. If you don't, then you'll watch issues show up. So the green leafy vegetables, they may not taste good, Vitamix them up and drink them. Or ninja them up, and that's why one of our prizes is a ninja blender. So what I'm basically showing you here is if you exercise, get adjusted, if you move your body, your brain will stay healthy. If you keep your stomach acidic and eat vegetables and eat fruits, it should keep your bowels acidic so you stay healthy. The problem is there's different drugs that can interfere with these things. The main nerve that turns all these organs on is called the vagus, and it's right in your brainstem. And remember the gargling thing I told you about the other day? That's how you stimulate that to make sure your stomach will work correctly. So I know I went over. Where we're at right now is if you have friends or family members who say have a digestive problem, if you know somebody who has, a cognitive issue, memory issue, pain, different things like that, we have our patient appreciation week coming up. That's when we do the party here. That's when we make it very easy for people to come in. The patient appreciation week is September 30th to October 3rd. October 3rd is the food and prize day, but think of a friend or family member right now, and then, within a couple of weeks, that's when we'll put the board up and you can easily get them on the board for the discounted rate. We're still doing the $20 for the full exam. So think of a friend or family member, help them get healthy, and thank you for being here.